Better?
Okay, this is the Town of Fairfield Affordable Housing Committee meeting of Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. It is now 7:06 p.m. In attendance, we have myself, staff to the Affordable Housing Committee, Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. We have Carrie Mackover, Nancy Lyons, Sheila. Where'd this thing go? Sorry. I'm sorry, Sheila Dravis Cosgrove and Chairman Steve Brathwell, along with Recording Secretary Gretchen Gerthner. Take it away, Steve.
Evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. I believe, Mark, because of the setup, that if there are anybody from the public who's listening, they will not be able to make comments. They can always email us later after the meeting.
Yep.
Right?
Here's Helene.
Yeah.
Helene is joining as well.
Just joining here.
Good.
Helene.
Good evening, Helene. Hey. So first, I'd like to get a motion to consider and act upon the minutes from the December meeting. Can I get a motion to approve from Sheila? A second. I think that was Carrie that raised her hand.
Sure,
Second.
that was Carrie who raised her hand.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments, discussion, typos, changes? So hearing none, I think just approve, say aye. And those opposed say nay.
Sheila, didn't you have a comment you wanted put in as I read over your memo? I wasn't sure, was that supposed to go in the minutes or not?
No, not in the December minutes. I'm
Okay.
fine with the December. Yeah. That was in case I wasn't going to be able to make it tonight.
Okay.
For the
All right.
current meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
and
so the
Sheila-
minutes are approved for
yes.
December 16th. Okay.
And Sheila, just a reminder that you are a little faint. And so if you want to ask a question or something, you might want to speak a little louder. Okay?
Let me try again.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that any better?
A little.
Let me turn it up.
We can hear you, just that you're faint. That's all.
That's how I feel, Steve. I feel faint.
Hey,
There's a lot of us.
yeah.
Be known.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the annual report from the Affordable Housing Committee to the RTM. The draft report was sent out, and I would like to get it approved, but let me first see, without going through the Robert's Rules of Order, if anybody has comments, questions. I did have a couple of what I consider sort of like typos that I'd already sent to Mark. The 4 pages, there's a cover page, and the last page is a highlighting of the 11 action items or goals that had been in the Affordable Housing Plan from 2014, right? And it's nicely laid out, Mark, thank you. But you can see what's been completed, and there are quite a number, 5 or 6. A few that we're making progress on, and 1 or 2 that are incomplete. And is that somebody talking, or is that
That's
background
me.
noise?
Sorry, I'm trying.
Oh.
Sorry.
So Steve, were there things on that last page that you needed a correction on?
No, I was just noting that it's a nice format laid out, but also it highlights not only the goals, but what we've been able to achieve in the last 6 years. And it's significant. And And so
Definitely.
I'm thanking Mark for attaching it. And it'll be a good discussion item for the RTM.
I'd like to tell you all that, Mark, I don't think you attended the SCROG meeting, but SCROG House committee meeting met on Tuesday, yesterday. My days are all blending together. And they gave a shout out to Fairfield. Melissa, what's her last name, from RPA.
Kaplan from RPA.
Yep,
Yeah.
we were a lot of kudos for our having a housing plan already, and helping with other towns in RPA to kind of facilitate, the requirements. So kudos to the Affordable Housing Committee and the town of Fairfield, and Mark for your part in all of that.
Great.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice. Mark, is there anything that the only other thing I'd want to point out, and we talk about it often, is the median household, the sales price last year, $675,000, which you need an income. I would think you'd need an income of over 200,000 to qualify, but I don't know, Helene, if you could do some quick math in your head, but it's just.
Sushi, go ahead.
I'm just following you, Steve. What do you want me to do?
No, I didn't know if you knew just from your day-to-day activities.
Calculus.
Yeah, what kind of income you would need to be able to buy a $675,000 house.
Easily 200,000.
Yeah.
Easily.
It's just an example again of how more difficult it is for people in town of a certain means, for the older and the younger, and that's one of the reasons why we're here and we're doing what we're doing. Mark, anything else you'd want to point out?
No, the only other thing that I didn't have time to update, but last year the request came from the RTM in response to reports similar in format. They wanted to have a map or a spatial representation of where the affordable housing units are, and so I do have that. I think I'd probably have to make a few minor adjustments to reflect those that were completed this year, but that's only a few. And we can include that as another page if we do.
Just one comment about that, Mark, is if you're going to do it so that it fits 8.5 by 11,
yep,
you kind of lose everything because it gets scrunched down. Is it possible to not show the entire town, but just the town with the affordable units? Because I'm expecting that's
actually
going to be in a smaller portion of town.
Yeah, they didn't really want it by, they weren't really focused on it by street address. They were looking at it geographically by neighborhood district or RTM district in particular. So since we have it, and since that was the request made, it does. You can get a good picture of where the affordable housing is located on the 8.5 by 11. It doesn't give you the level of detail.
If you make it, if you have the, I'm sure Jim and Emmeline do this. They make it at the larger scale, reduces the PDF, but you can view it, as a PDF. Then, if they're looking at it in the right browser or in Adobe, they can view sections of it and skip all around.
Ultimately, once we have replacement staff position here, I'd like to get that up on our website.
Yeah,
and then you can zoom in or zoom out and look at.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
And we'll be able to get a copy of that as well, Mark.
Oh yeah, I'll send it out to you beforehand, just to make sure that everyone's okay with it. And it was a question or a request made last time, so I thought I would preempt the request.
And can you do it by RTM district?
It is by RTM district.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, I would like to get the annual report approved, contingent upon you circulating that map.
Another change. Did you catch the names on the front page?
Yes.
Was that one?
Carrie,
Thanks.
yeah, my apologies, Carrie.
I figured Carrie might have mentioned
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I might have mentioned it. I did mention it, yes.
Yeah, there are a few mistakes here. And
That's okay.
Kind enough to point the rest of them out.
Oh,
So can we get a motion to approve?
So moved. So moved.
A second?
second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Or raise your hands,
Yeah.
hands, count them once.
Aye.
Okay.
But
good.
we have people that we don't have video for, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody opposed, say nay. So, hearing none. Okay. Good. The next item on the agenda is the RFQ for hiring a consultant to help us with the update to the affordable housing plan. And Mark, I did send you a couple of comments on this too, but they were more in the line of commas and typos, wordsmithing kind of stuff. Do you want to mention anything in particular about the RFQ?
No, this largely patterns the RFQ that we used the last go round. I mean, it's been updated obviously for reference. And I've also reviewed it with planning and zoning staff to get their comments, because our intent would be to work closely and collaboratively with the Planning and Zoning Commission on
Right.
this update. So, and incorporate the affordable housing plan, or at least the key elements of it, into the update. So it just incorporates those minor changes.
Mark, do you want to just refer as either a footnote or ask them to refer to the just posted or published RPA document that's been circulated or circulating?
Which
That you were
RPA
part
doc?
of. That
Which
you were part of, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, I saw your name there, so.
That's the one that Sheila was mentioning too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the toolkit.
yeah.
Has everybody read that?
I haven't read it. I just looked through it quickly, but I haven't read it.
Sheila, did you circulate that?
Oh,
Or-
no. Mm-mm. I can though if you like.
I can
Mark has
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Mark
post
has
it
it.
up on the site and send out a link.
Yes. Yeah, good.
Yeah, please do. And while we're talking about it, just sort of in that fashion, I sent you guys some info about Stratford. They're going through the same process
Yeah.
and using the same consultant as we had used. And so if you were to go on their site, you would look a little similar.
You might recognize a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But one thing, when we get to it, it's not time yet, but when we get to it in the calendar, they have a townwide Survey Monkey that you might want to look through. It's similar, again, to something we had done before.
Yeah. I think that's a must,
Yes.
Survey Monkey. And by the way, while I'm thinking of it, utilizing the library calendar to get out information about program, workshops and virtual
Mhm.
meetings to gather the public.
Yeah, can you expand on that, Sheila?
Well, it's
Well,
just one way of, announcing and making one other way of noticing a meeting. So,
We have a pretty broad
Mailing list.
distribution list for all of these meetings when we want to get the word out to folks. So the library is definitely part of that, Pequot as well.
yeah.
What I thought that
They'll post
Sheila
it on
was
the
referring
calendar for you.
to is that the library sends out emails to half the town or something, a lot of people. And if we could piggyback on that, and so
Yeah,
that's what I thought you were referring to.
The first select woman will also have it in her newsletter
right.
as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that gets read.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have to stay on the whole, multiple
Yep.
delivery of the same notice, through a, whatever, a 60-day period will
Yeah.
net the biggest, attendance or results. The survey is very cool. So, Mark, do you prepare a Survey Monkey, or is that something that
We do have a
people do?
subscription to SurveyMonkey, so we could very easily, working with the committee and the consultant, put together a survey and then post a link and then, or send out to a mailing list if we wanted. But what we've done in the past is post a link to the website and then refer to it through a lot of different marketing materials. I think the last one, we had almost 1,000 responses for like the Black Rock Turnpike safety study. There was like 1,000 responses to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So
That's really good.
Yeah,
one
it
other
was
thought.
great.
Yeah, one other thought would be is involving the Board of Ed and the
Yeah.
superintendent, or therefore, somebody directly involved with student affairs type, to get the feedback that the schools hear about kids who and families who
Yep.
are in need of housing and housing issues that they hear about.
One other
Right.
idea, Helene, the real estate board in town.
Yep.
Could we attach onto one of their mailings or postings? That would be a really good group.
We have a Monday morning memo that goes out every week, and if we want to share something, I can present that to Fran and ask her to share that with the group. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Fran or I are in good speaking terms. I provide her fair housing training for her new realtors.
So, Mark, when do you plan on publishing?
The RFQ?
Yeah.
As soon as I get Gerald Foley to issue it. I think what I'll do is I'll reach out to a few places that have recently done this. I'll probably talk to Susmitha and Stratford and my colleagues up in Groton, who just did a RFQ, and get all those respondents so we can let planning consultants know, and we'll maybe post it through APA, through the Connecticut chapter of APA. So, and then we'll publish it as we normally do. So we'll hopefully get a good response.
Yeah, my impression was from looking at the listserv for the Connecticut planners that a lot of people are looking for planning consultants.
Yeah, exactly. There are. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
We'll be in good company.
Oh, we'll all have a variety of the same report, probably, as has been done in the past.
How many of these planning consultants are there out there?
There's not a lot, Nancy. Not a lot that are decent, and that we could afford too. I mean, there's a lot of planning consultants if you're drawing from a national database, but you don't want to be flying in consultants from Chicago.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
On our budget, it won't work.
Right. We'll get them here and then they can't do anything.
Right.
Didn't we do that for the strategic plan?
Yes, we did. They spent all their money flying consultants back and forth. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to get a motion to approve the RFQ. Carrie,
Approve it.
second. Looks like Sheila.
A second.
And
Who made
all
the
in,
motion?
Carrie.
Oh, sorry.
And was it Sheila or Nancy that approved?
I think it was Sheila who seconded.
Seconded?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
Oh, that's good, Sheila. I like that. The two is the one. Yeah.
So all those in favor?
Wanna hang?
I'm going to try this.
Say aye, raise your hand.
Okay.
Aye.
Hi.
Nice.
Carrie's getting
I
fancy.
said, I'm trying. I'm exploring with how all this works. I'm looking at all these other gestures. So,
And I did not hear Nancy.
yeah, ta-da.
I said aye.
Nancy, were you in favor?
Was indeed.
Yeah, thank you. All those opposed, say nay. Raise your hand. Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Okay.
Okay, now an update on the accessory dwelling unit.
Very good.
Okay, an update. Was
So
that
just a
me?
second. So planning and zoning had a hearing last night.
Here's my reaction to that.
Yeah.
No, what
No,
happened?
wait. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't quite
That
that
It
bad.
started off great. It
Yeah.
just went a little sideways. Go ahead, Sherry.
Oh,
All right. So I think Steve was listening. I was listening. Of course, they were in basically work session. We could not speak or otherwise make our or send little reactions. Maybe we could have, I don't know. But anyway, we behaved ourselves. And there was a motion to approve and a second and a fairly good discussion. And Jim, they started going over it point by point, things they liked, things they didn't like. And Jim gave a really good history of what he had heard at the planning sessions, you know, like before times when we had planning sessions in person, and you know, things he had heard from people, what people wanted. And he stressed that this was a way of both, you know, adding additional affordable housing, but allowing people to get started with ADUs in general. That one of the big objections that they had heard as they went through with meeting with people or just informally was that 5-year, you know, whatever it was, look back period, that you couldn't have had an addition that had been built onto your house within 5 years, or couldn't, you know, it was just you couldn't build an addition without going to ZBA, even if you were conforming. So that's really been a big problem. And they went through it line by line, and pretty much it was okay until they sort of got to the end when they started discussing affordable housing. And all of a sudden, it was like they hadn't heard a lot of the other things we had said at their meeting when we talked about naturally occurring affordable housing, that this was for seniors, and we were, you know, certainly in favor of having some deed restricted housing, but it was to allow many more options for people to stay in Fairfield, no matter what their situation was, singles, elderly, whatever. And not everybody needed deed restricted housing, but they needed housing that was just more affordable for people who are not earning $200,000 a year. And it was like, hey guys, you know, I said, oh, but I couldn't say that. I talked about some other things. There was some concern about eliminating the 400 square foot minimum, which I know we had eliminated because Mark said, I think that it was against state law or something like that. And there was an increase in the maximum size, a discussion about capping the maximum size of an ADU at 1,500 square feet, and about eliminating somebody to build an accessory apartment right now. Who was it who brought that up, Steve? I don't remember. Levy? I think it was Levy. About allowing people to build a new house with an accessory apartment in it, which could be okay. I think it kind of happens anyway. Maybe it's not a full accessory apartment. Maybe it's a kitchenette kind of thing, which does not define an accessory apartment. And we had not proposed that, but they're thinking about that. The approval of the detached accessory housing at perhaps with a 1,500 square foot cap, and a bunch of other little things. And Lenny Brayman, I put it in caps, he said, it's time has come. So he sort of recognized a lot of the things we were talking about, but it sort of didn't stay there. So I don't want to go through what everybody said, but basically everybody had comments about things. But the main thing that towards the end was when the chairman of the commission spoke about, we really need to stress affordable housing that's going to affect us by providing more deed restricted units. And he really wanted to see that 40-year restriction. And of course, at that point, even though Steve and I couldn't see each other, I know we were saying, and Mark too, I have a feeling, I know we were saying the same thing, which is like, oh my God, that is going to just kill everything. No homeowner in their right mind, I don't believe, is going to agree to a 40-year deed restriction. I mean, the average length of time people are in houses is sometimes 7 years. I've been here 30 years, and that's a lot. You know, it's just not going to happen. It's a ridiculous law on the states.
I think my exact text that Jim went during the discussion was a 40-year requirement will kill the program.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But
It will.
Steve Braswell's email to me saying the same thing. So
Yeah, right. And we all, we all had that reaction. Jim and Emmeline, the direction from the commission was kind of mutually agreed upon that they were going to table it now and have Jim and Emmeline prepare a redlined version which incorporated many of their comments and perhaps some rationale of the things they talked about. And I have a feeling Jim and Emmeline will redo the draft with consensus from what they agreed on and perhaps point out to them some of their errors. That does not mean we should not incentivize affordable housing that meets 830G requirements, but we can incentivize it in a different manner through a combination of maybe putting back in the zoning regulations proposal what we have right now, which is we allowed 3 people instead of 2, and I think we allowed a slightly larger size. I'm trying to think of what the regs are right now. And then there, of course, as Jim kept saying to them, the way this is going to be incentivized is through other formats, not necessarily through the zoning regulations, but through taxes or relief or whatever, or grants, or through what we're going to do as the Affordable Housing Committee. So that's my short version of where things stand now. There was some concern about basically we're going to be all multifamily if we allow these apartments. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a lot of them in one year, even with a lot of publicity and encouragement, because these are expensive to build. These are difficult times to find contractors. I think there's a need for it. I mean, there are 2 things on my street right now happening that basically fulfill that need for elderly parents. So it's going to be back to them on the 26th with a version from Jim and Emmeline. We have no right at this point to talk directly to the commission, although there are some comments I'm pretty sure that we will like to make to you and to perhaps staff, either through Mark or directly, just things to think about. I know FSA, and don't forget, FSA was one of the sponsors of this, as was Fair Plan. FSA has some concerns. I don't know if I have the ability to share, but let me see. If I have the ability to share, I have something up on my screen. Let me see if it'll work. No, it's not showing. Start. Optimize. This may do it. I don't know. No, it won't do it.
yeah, it is.
No, but it's not showing you what I want to show you. So
Okay.
it's just showing you that. Let me see if it will. It may be if I can make it. All right, that's what I wanted to show you right there. And if you want, I will send it to the AHC and to Mark. And these are basically the concerns that, I've kind of talked about and that we all talked about, both at the meeting and me a little bit tonight. So,
Can you circulate that, Carrie, to us?
I'll circulate it to you. And Mark, do you want me to send you? Should I send you a copy to it?
Yeah, if you just send it out, I'll get a copy to send it to the AHC.
Yeah, and maybe we can all add our comments.
Yeah.
Well, this is Carrie, is this a recap of what was discussed?
No, it's a recap. This was drafted by Herb of Fairfield Senior Advocates, but it's basically, I think, something we are probably all going to be in agreement with. But it's just things to think about. I mean, there's a lot of the things we said already. So I'll just call it considerations.
Yeah.
I would say the conversation was generally positive, and they were in strong support for proposing or approving the amendments, and even going further than what was being proposed. The issue really, where they really fell short, where they really got off track, was they had a very extended conversation precipitated by the chairman about how do we get credit for these accessory dwelling units under the moratorium. How do we basically link this to a deed restriction that would qualify for moratorium points? And that just is a non-starter to compel people in order to create an accessory unit. It has to be 40-year deed restriction. That's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And what's going to happen is you're gonna have a lot of illegal accessory dwelling units in town because no one's
Yeah,
gonna do this.
it's going to have the opposite effect.
Right.
So here's my thought. I brought it up last month. I would love to invite all of the members of the zoning board to have a conversation about how 830G works. You know,
Well, they know how
and-
it works. They just,
well, they
know.
they don't
well,
understand
I think
that.
part of what, I even think in the conversation that Jim Wen characterized.
Really understand the deed restriction. I
They
mean, if they do, they're not equating the deed restriction to the homeowner. I mean,
I think it was
the animal.
expressed as a hope, and I mean, I would hope that we get credit for these units as under the moratorium. But you know, if the definition is and it's not settled law. There's some ambiguity in the statute as to whether or not an ADU has to be deed restricted for 10 years or 40 years in order to count towards moratorium.
Yes, we can restrict it for 10 years. It's allowed. Yeah. Whether they count it or not is a whole different, but it still could. So that helps them. Yep. It fulfills their need to feel as though they've created some affordable housing, and that's great. It fulfills our need too. But more importantly, to Carrie's point, this is not why it was necessarily proposed. It was proposed to create naturally affordable housing and allow an income stream and allow for people to use that income stream to pay their taxes. It's a kind of a different animal. So I would just say that it may be a conversation, with one representative that they could bounce questions off of us.
Yeah, well, Mark, let me ask you about the chairman, because at the end he went on the sidetrack about, well, all of the ADUs should be affordable. We shouldn't do it unless it's affordable, unless it qualifies for a moratorium, which means then 40 years. And I couldn't tell if he was trying to advance the conversation to be inclusive, or if he was advocating for that. I couldn't tell if it was sort of a devil's advocate kind of thing, or
creating a barrier. Sorry.
Yes.
No, I think he wants it, but I do think that sometimes Matt does put the devil's advocate here.
Yeah, I think he does.
I think that it's probably a good idea just to let staff, Jim and Emmeline prepare a consensus document for their review. It wasn't going to get decided last night anyway. Have them table it, and I think Jim and Emmeline can then have a conversation with leadership to make sure they understand what the intent here is.
Yeah.
Good. Up to that point, everything was very positive, right. Yeah. And then we just got down this separate track, and we couldn't get it back because Carrie, Steve, and I couldn't really talk because we were
silenced.
I was busy texting Jim and giving him points, but that was about it.
So, Mark, if let's assume it gets approved in 2 weeks, and it takes effect like a month after or something?
Yeah, I'd say next month. Yeah.
And so that means the onus is on us to think about how we could financially incentivize, right?
Yeah, I think we just need to have. I do think what the point that Matt was bringing is an important one, and other groups will have the same point of view. It's great to create affordable units here, but I sense that there is certainly a strong desire to get credit for the units that we create.
Thank you. Thanks.
And so I think that, it could be tough without us getting the actual credit for them. And so I've been asking the town attorney to, give us some opinion as to whether or not the State Department of Housing staff's interpretation of the statute is a correct one. Basically, the statute for accessory dwelling units says that they count towards your affordable housing inventory if they're restricted for a period of 10 years. But then later on, the statute references how you go about getting moratorium periods. And in that context, it says that units have to be restricted for 40 years. It doesn't specifically spell out accessory dwelling units with the 40 years, but that's how the state Department of Housing interprets it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
But Ridgefield was
But
Ridgefield
Trumbull-
allowed
Trumbull-
to count them.
Trumbull was the one that started it, and
Mhm.
they got their first moratorium on the basis of a 10-year restriction for ADUs.
And that's a precedent.
And the Department of Housing opposed it, but then they granted them a provisional moratorium while the AG's office studied the issue. And then the moratorium term ran out, and the AG's office never rendered an opinion. So it's unsettled law. So the issue that I was trying to bring out this Jim last night was that it's not decided. That's the State Department of Housing staff position, but no one has actually adjudicated that at this point. So
That's a good point, and thank you for elaborating on that. I feel confident that precedent was set and it will go through, but that being said, it's not fully decided. But for the TP's board, understand the 10% or the 10-year deed restriction as it relates to the overall affordability is very important because moratoriums run out. And that's the one little thing nobody really thinks about. They think, oh, it's a moratorium. We're done. You're not done. You're not even close. Nobody will ever be super close, obviously, to getting the whole 10%. But it has to continue, and those ADUs will add to that and allow us to continue to extend to the next moratorium. Without it, we're going to run short even more than we are. It's just like, something in your back pocket. Maybe that's the part they don't understand.
Well, I think too that, we kind of got into that conversation, and Steve remembers it well from the last time we proposed this, where people started having these visions that we were going to create thousands of units in town through these regulatory amendments. And the reality is that it's going to be a handful of people that want to take advantage of it. So it's not really going to dramatically change the posture of the town
Not at all.
anyway.
So
but
maybe
it's meaningful for those people that are actually using these units. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I said 2 months ago that we really shouldn't talk about the affordability aspect, because that's more often than not going to be why people take advantage of it. It's just not.
They're just hyper focused on it right now.
Yeah, they are.
And so the word affordability really should be carefully inserted to any conversation. I'm not trying to be, avoid, but
let's just talk about lowercase affordable housing.
People. Yeah, it confuses.
So Sheila, you brought up a good point about the moratorium not being the end. That if we get it, we still have to look to the future. And in order to get the points that we need for the first moratorium, Mark, my guess is we're talking about 20 developments in town, or 25 that we've cobbled together to get the 450.
Yeah.
We're closer. I think we will be.
Yeah, but that means that to get the next moratorium, we're probably talking about a similar number of developments. And
well, the reality is, Steve, it's almost as if we get our first moratorium, we're very close to getting a second stuff that's in the pipeline.
All right. Can I say one thing? There's a lot going on. One thing we need to keep our eye on is this whole desegregate committee, Connecticut committee, which is being very, very active. We have to remember too that Kristen McCarthy Fahey is now chair of what's it
House
called?
Planning and Development. Yep.
Planning and
Mhm.
Development. So she is the actual chair, and she, of
Mhm.
course, is very interested and is in town and very receptive and willing to meet with anybody really anytime. And the third thing to remember is that really what needs to change, and I think we still have to keep trying, is the 830G to recognize what we have as naturally occurring affordable housing. And we do have naturally occurring affordable housing because I see these rental ads on Craigslist for apartments, and it's
Mhm.
out there. And I don't think we have to give up on that. I think Tony or somebody got some minor changes made 2 years
Won't
ago.
happen.
Won't happen.
Yeah.
Well,
No.
maybe through
Won't
but
happen.
maybe there's going to be a lot of things that happen through Desegregate Connecticut, although I do wish they had a different name. But there, a lot of people are that's very active, and a lot of their presentations have been great. And yeah.
There's
Anyway,
another group called Open Community Alliance or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yep.
The people doing that Woodbridge proposal. All these groups are now working together. It's really interesting to see what's happening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of activity there.
There is definitely some zoning amendments, the state zoning amendments being discussed.
Yeah.
I heard about them yesterday. I didn't catch it all because the guy spoke so fast, but he's one of the consultants that is working with the other towns to develop their affordable housing plan. I might be able to get that from Scrog and pass it along to you guys.
Okay.
You remember his the firm's name?
No,
No.
not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
There's a few of them.
I can
Well,
send you
Mark-
Scrog's
Yeah.
agenda. You'll know him. You'll know who.
I was going to bring this up later, but might as well do it now. That I'd like to invite Tony and Kristen, and I forget the third.
Laura,
Yeah.
Jen Leeper.
Jen, right? Jen's now our.
Yeah. So would I just leave it open to them? I mean, we could take them one at a time, or they could all come together. March, April, May, February.
Whatever.
I'll leave it up to you.
I think that's a great idea, Steve.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
Probably one at a time, or however they want to
Well,
work it.
I mean, if you want to shape the legislative agenda, you got to get them in sooner.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me see what I can do.
okay.
Good.
I'm actually going to speak with Kristen tomorrow night. Shall I bring that to her attention? See if she would like
You
to come?
can, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll ask her.
So is anything else? One other thing on the ADUs. There was some discussion about the front doors.
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't figure out which way that was going.
Oh, I know it was. Some people were okay with the 10 feet. Some people weren't, but some people were okay with them looking alike, like two front doors. Other people were, let Jim and Emmeline worry about it. This
Yeah,
is what
we'll
I
let
said.
them come up with a consensus. I'll get a copy of it and I'll share it with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on then. An update on 350 Quincy. Anything happening?
She pays her rent on time. How's that?
That's good.
Good.
I've commissioned now three appraisals and conversations with the homeowners, 3 other homeowners. Nothing yet, but my time frame is hopefully this time next month or the following month we would be starting through the approval process afterwards. I'd like to have this tied up by April, if I can. So,
And the approval process for,
Yeah.
well, it would be both the purchase as well as the funding. And, the financing would be based on basically taking the money that's already been committed by this group and wrapping it into a short-term financing instrument that we can roll for a period of up to 4 years. And the Housing Trust Fund would basically have to pay the interest on the note. And the interest on the note on an annualized basis is probably around $75,000 on a $2 million note. So we could probably, for the money that we've already appropriated, cover the interest and carrying costs and the short-term financing instrument to borrow $2 million to acquire the property.
So it'd be like 5 properties or something. It's not just 350 Quincy. You're talking
Yeah.
about a larger.
This only works if we can get 5 or 6 adjoining parcels that we can put together about an acre, get a developer that we can work with to work together, present a plan, get it approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, then build it and sell the units that basically repay the money that the town borrowed for the acquisition, the sale proceeds. And then, you know, to the extent to which there's a gap, then that would be something the Housing Trust Fund potentially would cover.
Mhm.
Or maybe we'll be able to get other financing to cover that, but that's the thought. It really depends on our land acquisition cost or construction cost, which is a major component of development, and then what we're able to sell them for on the backside. So, I mean, it kind of works, but you probably have to do a 3-for-1 replacement. And I know that the boards all would like to see more affordable units there. So it's not just simply a preservation. They're trying to add more units as well. So that's good, but you know, that depresses the sale price of the home, because to make them affordable, you have to sell them at 210, 220, 230, somewhere in that range.
Well, maybe you can do more affordable than and just a couple market rate, like 30 market.
Yeah,
rate
exactly.
affordable. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
But
have
to
mixed
to
income.
maximize the affordable, we may end up with a gap between costs, development costs, and the revenues. And that might be something, you know, that we would want to subsidize and say, well, that's good. You know, we're okay with subsidizing $20,000 per unit if it ends up adding, you know, twice as many affordable units, whatever. So that's part of
How
the
you do it
conversation.
without subsidizing it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna allow and allocate some CDBG next year?
Yeah, I think, I had put together a preliminary budget before and had always included a small amount of CDBG to cover the site clearance costs, because we're going to have to demo the existing units. And so we did that before, and that's a good number for us. You know, it's an eligible activity, as you know, Sheila, and then, you know, the cost is manageable within our CDBG grant.
Yeah, even some acquisition if you need to.
Yeah, even acquisition. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even if you put it aside and you don't use it, you can just reprogram it later.
Mhm.
I mean, I just, you know, I'm always happy to spend and plan to spend more, and if I don't, then I find something else to spend it on.
Mhm.
Let me mention that so Sheila had circulated an email about Habitat, Kathy Collins, and so I reached out to Kathy to let her know what Fairfield was up to. You know, the ADU units, Quincy Street. Wondering if maybe Habitat might be able to get more active in Fairfield. Very nice to talk to. But they're going. First of all, COVID is keeping everybody. It's like an anchor, you know. It's hard to get going. But they're going through their own strategic planning at the moment. But she was very appreciative of the phone call. She was glad to hear that what we're up to, and you know, hopefully we can figure out some way to get involved in the near future.
Yeah, I think that would be great for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for calling.
Okay. Anything there, Mark? Anything more, or shall we move on?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. So the trust fund, the application, Sheila and then Mark circulated. I don't know, Sheila, if you had a comment or two you wanted to raise. By and large, I thought it looked pretty good. You know, I did have a comment or two from Mark about switching something around, but just it was a minor point. You know.
Yeah, no, I thought it looked great. How'd
Yeah,
Yeah, I
everybody
didn't get
else?
a chance to incorporate your comments, Steve. So
Yeah.
were your comments, Steve?
Oh, one was a very minor point that if they're going to submit by hand, if they could give us a thumb drive or a disk, so we could have it on the computer easier to share that way. That I thought the town should have the flexibility to accept or reject any and all applications. It's just sort of a wide open flexibility that I give myself that flexibility in my private business. And I think the town should have that for themselves.
I agree.
The funding over 25K would be secured by a second mortgage. I thought everything that we do should be secured in some fashion. It's a soft second, or it's a first, or it's a deed restriction, but there ought to be something for anything that gets trust fund money.
I agree.
So that's basically it.
Yeah, it's because houses get sold, and it'd be good to have the money come back, even on a prorated basis.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be forgiven,
Yeah.
but
Or it could stay in place if the new owner agreed to abide by all of the regulations.
Well, that's true. It's true. We wouldn't make them pay us back if they could work it out with the person who bought it, but so there's always it's good to have be open to the options. I agree.
A question, Mark, Sheila, has anybody like Operation Hope seen this, or Connecticut Housing Partners, or?
No, but I could
yet.
send it to them and ask for any feedback before we finalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
think that would
waiting
make
until we
sense.
had something to send it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me to do that, I mean, I'm happy to do that to all of our housing partners.
Yeah, well, just a couple. I'd like to, well, first of all, this is when did you anticipate this might be published?
In the
week,
next
month?
month or next month, we could post it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was advocating for posting it,
Yep.
kind of a soft opening, and then a soft opening, and then not doing anything to aggressively market it for a little while.
Yeah.
We could post it
That's great.
soon,
So
and then
the
just
reason
send
I
it out
ask
to
is send it out to
our
like,
partners. Yeah.
but give them a week or something. Don't give them forever to respond.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And your idea with that is just to ask for their feedback.
Yeah.
Anything we missed or anything that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense to them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. So before we do that, I did email because I wasn't sure if I was going to make it in time, but I just had one concern about, and thank you, Mark, for finishing off the instruction list and pulling that together. That's it. I know you're super busy, but I figured you would make quick work of it.
Well, it was largely done. You did all the work, so.
Well,
Thank you.
yes. Sometimes it's it takes a
Takes a
village.
village. It takes a village. Absolutely.
But the review criteria is what I hadn't really pulled together. So this is really great. But I just had a problem with, and a suggestion, recommendation with H. Public support for the project. I think it's really important. It's a little too subjective.
Yeah, I was
me.
thinking, how about demonstrated public support for the project?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how you would. So I would like to be even more specific. I think they should come in with maybe a letter, a written statement of support.
That's why I think you want to probably leave it a little vague so you can interpret what that means. The demonstrated public support means to me that it's not just they come in and say, oh yeah, I have support for this. I talk to the neighbors. I would think you'd want a letter of referral or some kind of recommendation from some board, but you haven't but you haven't spelled it out precisely. That gives you a little bit more flexibility to say, yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't think it's really.
So we wouldn't, you're not suggesting that they have to have a board's approval?
I don't think that we want to require
I don't think
that.
so either.
Yeah, because some of these may be coming in as pre-development applications.
Too, but so that's, even a pre-development application should have some,
Yeah,
some,
I just think
You know,
I think there's a
even if-
benefit. I think there's a benefit to you to leaving it a little vague as to what that means, and then you can interpret it. But I do hear what you're saying. It's a little bit more than just you need to have demonstrated public support. That's like support in writing, that type of thing. So
yeah, and so I think I object to the word public because I think what people will take it
well, how
as,
about I say demonstrated support for the project?
how about written statement of support, period. I mean, I just think it says what it needs to say. It doesn't mean anybody specific, and it's not opening it up to, first of all, if I read it, if I were somebody applying for the word, the grant, and I read public support, I would not even bother.
You would turn around and walk away.
I'd turn around and walk away because why would I stick my head out to have it cut off? And I'm not exaggerating because that's what happens. So I think that's kind of a barrier. It's terminology that would deter somebody.
But Sheila,
I
on
can
the
take
flip
out.
side,
I can take out public.
no, but we want them
I
to,
think the other thing is, I think
the neighbors or to the RTM representative. We don't want
That's fine.
to get,
So when they
too
call
far
and
down the
say,
road
what do you
without
mean
that-
by that? We can say, well, they could bring in a letter from their banker. Oh, this is a really great, we're all behind this because this, this is our CRA and this is what we want to do. I mean, it could be anything.
You might use the word current support for the project. Let them interpret it. Anybody who wants to talk, they'll have plenty of chances at whatever public and zoning hearing is required, and they know that. But the point is, people who demonstrated public support is oh my God, no, I'm not. I mean, one of the things that Desegregate Connecticut has been talking about is really encouraging more as of right zoning. Well, more as zoning where you can just go in and get a zoning permit for a fourplex or something like that. I don't think we're at that point yet here in Fairfield, but at the same time, I don't think we need to make life more difficult than it is already for anybody trying to get something off the ground.
Well, I think you guys are misreading this a little bit because these are criteria that you evaluate on. It's not that everyone scores perfectly on all these points, and you may weight them to different degrees. I'm just suggesting that a project that enjoys broad support, that can demonstrate broad support.
Okay, that's certainly good.
Be higher up on our list of projects we want to participate in than one that doesn't. That doesn't mean you can't fund a project that doesn't enjoy public support or any kind of support, but I do think it's one of many criteria that you should consider. And it gives the commission and the town a lot of reasons to say yes, no, maybe on these things. I think, at the end of the day, you want to have enough things that you can evaluate a project on that if you decide not to fund it, you can say it's because of X, Y, and Z. And this is just one of many. That's all.
Yeah.
So maybe,
I think
you
point,
need to.
I agree with your point. Like public support might be a little bit pejorative. So maybe if we just say demonstrated support for the project, people can interpret that in many different ways.
Right.
Demonstrate is hard to pass in with an application. I really think they need to actually get somebody to put it in writing.
It could be a letter from a funder that says
existing support.
Yeah. So
and let's interpret that.
So some of these folks are going to be really small and they're not going to be developers who are like, oh yeah, he means something in writing. I think you sometimes just have to say what you mean for everybody to understand it and look at it from that perspective. So it could be small builders who aren't sure exactly and big builders who totally understand that. But, and then you can rate, the criteria can be rated, and it doesn't have to be everybody. You could have a really great proposal, but maybe they just have you know, just
I
their
didn't, I
local
didn't think,
banker.
I didn't think we were that sophisticated because there's some that have very formalized processes and say, these are the criteria that we're evaluating your project on. And it's worth this, we're waiting
I
this
know.
much. And I don't think I don't think we're that sophisticated yet. Maybe we'll get there, but that might be a bridge too far for us.
At the first stage, I just want to find out what's out there, who's got some
Yeah, me
ideas.
too.
And
And I don't want to deter anybody,
yeah,
because we're looking for naturally occurring affordable housing, and it's the only way to do it is to keep it open and allow people who are only used to going to a bank to ask us for.
We're not looking for naturally affordable. We're looking for projects that we can invest in to create deed restricted affordable housing.
But naturally occurring in a way that is not what the town is used to seeing already. We're trying to create something different. We're trying to create something the town can look at and say, oh, there's something else out there besides these big, you know, what they call as, you know, nobody really objects to McMansions, but of course, you know, you put a 30-unit project someplace and everybody's all up in a uproar.
But you do a 4-unit McMansion that looks and feels like a single family house.
So do you want to just eliminate H? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I know I'm being a real stickler. You know.
Well, I'm okay eliminating it. I'm okay eliminating it. I could take it out at this stage. At some stage, it's critically important.
Well, I think you should have
get the
some
first stage.
form of written support, a written statement of support. I think that's pretty benign, and I think it's okay to ask for. That's my thought.
If that doesn't do it either, because it sounds like maybe some line at the beginning of the whole application itself that says, you know, please fill out the spaces that are relevant to you or something like that and let them decide. Existing written support sounds like really formal letter from other people, and they may not have it yet. We may be the first stop, you know.
It doesn't have to be. It could be however they define it. That's I'm
however they define it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But as long as it's in writing,
and I will I'll take out the word public.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm good with this, with the revised with a few changes that have been discussed, and with Mark sending out to a few of.
And maybe we'll have more suggestions.
Right.
But after you send it out.
You send it out to Operation Hope and one or two others, and then you would give us a final copy that is going to be posted. Correct?
Okay.
Yep. That's a yes, right? Good.
Yes.
And we'd love to see the comments too, if you can.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I can do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Well, that takes us down to old business, the moratorium status report. And in particular, Mark, if you could talk about the Black Rock Turnpike project that just got approved.
The one that was just considered last night. The public hearing was closed. 5545.
Yeah, the one it's not an 830G, right?
Yeah, it's listed here on our tracker as an 830G. It was originally proposed as a set-aside development under 830G as a 99-unit development at 5545 Park Avenue, which is
where is that?
It's pretty much at the Trumbull line. It's on the other side of Sacred Heart, the athletic fields and behind the business school.
Okay.
So it's
right adjacent
from
to the
surgical center and right at the Rotary.
Yeah.
So it's pretty isolated. But he had come in and gotten approval from Water Pollution Control Authority for a 99-unit development there. Ultimately, you know, there was initially some concern about sewer capacity and hookup, and then ultimately they were able to get a connection through the city of Bridgeport that actually works better for all parties concerned. But in the interim, he decided he would scale it back and propose something different, like an 830G Lite, which we've talked about before. It's really, and I noted to Jim that it's very similar to incentive housing zones. It's something that was created under the Housing for Economic Growth program, for which we got funding to do the plan last time. But the only difference is that he's not proposing 20% affordable, which is what an IHC would require. He's proposing an 80-unit development, 15% affordable at 80% AMI. So, my comment to Jim was, hey, maybe if the Planning and Zoning Commission would like to consider this text amendment that he's proposed to create this special overlay district, maybe we call it what it is, an incentive housing zone, and maybe we require them to set aside 20% at 80% AMI, which gives us a few more points and a few more affordable units, and see, if they like the concept, maybe they go back and they approve it conditionally based on 20%. See what the result is. I don't know. I don't know if they're in favor of the concept or not. But this location is pretty. I mean, there are some. There was some opposition from some of the abutting neighbors, but they're pretty distant for the most part.
What's the address?
5545 Park Avenue.
Oh, right.
So it's largely surrounded by Sacred Heart, Notre Dame, the surgical center in Trumbull. So
I did that far up. That far
up? It's really far up.
They have neighbors up there?
What's that?
That must be really on the line, right?
Yeah.
It must be on the border of Fairfield and.
They're on the border of Fairfield, Easton, and Trumbull.
Yeah, okay.
Location in terms of employment availability nearby through Trumbull Mall and also through the medical center at Yale, the Yale Medical Center up there. So it's a very good location for employment and even public transportation on Park Avenue, I would imagine.
And commuting.
He made it pretty clear as he closed his statement. He said, "Look, we laid it out as a set-aside development, our 830G, and we had 99 plus units there. We can do that. But we wanted to propose another alternative, another way, if the board's interested in it." So, I think that there has some merit because we've talked about, hey, is there an alternative where we don't have to do 830G, something that's more palatable? I don't know if it's the right project or not.
15%. 80%
Yeah, 15% at 80% AMI is what he proposed.
Yeah,
I think we should ask for more, but
yeah,
we could ask. And the point is, since it's not an 830G, we do have room to negotiate with them in good faith. I mean, the commission does. So
they could essentially pass the regulation and make a condition, make a change and say, provided you set aside 20% at 80% AMI. So. They could do that.
Or they could take.
I'm not sure that would affect them that much because the AMI is pretty high, right? If you look at where do you have?
If you look at
the application.
Yeah.
So,
I just went through this with another guy today, but a one bedroom at 80% AMI would gross $1,387.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty high.
It's not.
That's not high these days, folks.
I understand it's not high, but it's not like absurdly low either. So
it's not $700. No.
And a two bedroom would be $1,735.
Yeah.
So. Can you make the numbers work at 80 units?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much what would be a market rate there at that location?
How about 15%, or how about keep the 15% and the TPZ board gets some more aesthetic type.
I think they'll ask for that too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of things to negotiate over then in everybody's best interest. So.
Yeah.
Well, That's
So-
nice that they're not just ramming the 830G down, huh? That's good.
Well, that's a start, because really
That's a
we
start.
do need that ability to negotiate, and this may be a way of kind of developing it. So
So where do we stand overall? How close are we getting?
Well, there isn't a whole lot of change from last month. Like really no change from last. I don't think
The
I.
gap's still 56 or something?
And that 56, you have to take that too with a little bit of look a little skeptically at it, because again, we're going to get into that interpretation with Department of Housing over how many points get assigned to 15 Pine Tree Lane.
Yeah.
So I think it's I think it's new housing, because we tore down the old one, we built new, and I think we get credit for all of them. But his position is we only get credit for the net increase.
Yeah.
So Mike Santoro is not the commissioner either. So
No. Okay. But you would say we're 12 months away, 18 months away,
based on the stuff that's in the pipeline, yeah, for sure.
12 or 18
We're at least a year away.
away. Okay.
I mean, it takes a year to 18 months to build something. So the only thing that we have currently in the pipeline under construction really is, and they haven't even started, is 78 Umpqua. 528 Black Rock Turnpike should also start soon. But when will they actually be occupied?
yeah, there's a lot of market absorption that has to happen between all of the stuff.
It's really,
Is it?
I will tell you this, the developers of Alta Fairfield, the new Trademark 2 development,
Yeah.
they were at 50% lease up within a month.
Really?
Yes.
Was that before times or after times?
Yeah.
They are very ecstatic about
Interesting.
the lease up.
Oh.
And they're moving to a phase 3. And 1675 Post Road is fully leased with the exception of one unit.
Wow.
And they got, I share with you what they were getting on a per square foot basis. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And it's interesting.
The penthouse and the first floor unit are both rented.
Yeah, of course.
So you can let Jan Weaver know.
It doesn't look bad as you drive down the post road. Now that it's got big brick facing and everything, it blends in a hell of a lot better than that drugstore just up the street from it. So, yeah.
I don't agree. It just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh, come on. It's progress, people. It's progress. Listen, I love a new building. I'm sorry, I just do. I'm
It's a little different.
I'm an architectural. I just love new buildings. So, Mark, I'm going to bring up something that I kind of haven't talked about in a while. So, the points, are they going to include the permanent supportive housing speed restrictions? Are those something we're going to have?
Yeah, I'm trying to close that loophole. We have, Operation Hope just recently purchased the Durrell Drive properties from Tom Cristiano, and has applied. They have a tax abatement in place based on the development agreement, and so there is that whole conversation taking place, and the RTM approved an abatement to cover low moderate income housing. So there is a trade-off here. We provide tax abatement, but in return, we need a deed restriction so that it qualifies. So that's basically my hook right now, to cover all of it. And the idea is we do have some already covered, but I want to modify. When I've talked to Carla about changing the AMI to 40% and making sure they all have 40-year deed restrictions in place. So she's good.
Okay. Yeah, that's more involved than, so you want to give all of them a tax abatement.
They all are getting a tax
They
abatement.
all are. Okay.
So to the extent, in return, I'm fine with giving the tax abatement, but in return, we're expecting 40-year restriction at 40% AMI.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's good leverage.
yep.
Yeah, they just need to bite the bullet. That's their mission. There's understand
All
that
this
it's
got-
property and its value, you know, they want to have some equity somewhere. I get it. But you know, down the road, who knows, you know, maybe we release it. Maybe, you know, maybe that something works out and that's something that, you know,
Well, like
that's not
anything,
going
you
to
know,
happen, but
because it's linked. The two are linked. You get a benefit in exchange for providing a benefit, bestowing a benefit to the town. So the two are linked together.
that's true. That's true. And I was thinking that some of them already had CDBG funds given to them.
They did, but they weren't restricted for a 40-year period.
Well, were they restricted at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of those are expiring, so we want to
Yes.
end them.
There's the glitch, folks, is that deed restrictions expire, and so this is why, you know, no matter what, if you can get a deed restriction, you should just get a deed restriction as long as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that about permanent supportive housing is that's more than likely not going to change. They're not going to sell it. They're not going to turn it into a market rate rental because that's their mission. So
right.
Yep.
And
it's owned by a nonprofit, so it makes it a totally different ballgame than when it's owned by a homeowner. So
yeah, but Sheila, the supportive housing, in particular, are you talking about a group other than Operation Hope?
They're the only ones that operate permanent supportive housing in Fairfield right now.
I'm talking about the moratorium list and the items that are in red ink.
Okay.
Red font. Those are permanent supportive housing, and those don't have deed restrictions yet. And in order to get to the number we need, they have to say yes and deed restrict them.
So point is they actually have deed restrictions. They just don't meet the standard for moratorium points to the extent to which they have listed here. So either they're less than a 40-year term, or they're restricted at 80% AMI, which only gives us a 1.5. So if we change it to a 40% AMI, which is really the population that he serves, you get 2.5 points versus 1.5 points.
Right.
So the reason I asked the question is I had a conversation with a group from New York City, something like the Committee for Supportive Housing, something like that. I forget exactly. And they have money, and they will give you a grant, or they'll give you a construction loan or a permanent loan if a certain number of the units are for permanent supportive housing. And we should talk to them. Certainly Operation Hope probably already knows about them, but they should talk with them. So that's all. I'll circulate the people so you know who they are.
okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What's happening with Mill Hill Terrace? Are we in new business or old? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
We are in we are in whatever you want to be in, Carrie. So.
Yeah, really. Well, Mill Hill Terrace, the 8-acre site that I believe that's
Housing Authority has?
I don't know. What am I trying to ask her? Yeah.
Well, we did have a first black woman, myself, attorney Jim Wendt, participating in the web. I think Senator Wong was on the call too. We participated in the WebEx call with the neighbors and went through more process-related questions and tried to answer questions regarding 830G and how an application is considered, what's the criteria. We don't have details with respect to any development proposals. There's no application made. In fact, they haven't even gone to contract on the property yet. They have, I believe, an accepted offer to purchase it, but it hasn't gone to contract, let alone
Okay.
close.
We're talking about the one that we believe Fairfield Housing
It's
Authority
really,
is interested in,
it's
or
called, I believe the development entity, which is part of the confusion,
Yeah,
is
right.
Sasco Creek Development Corporation, which is a wholly owned subsidiary, if you will, of the Westport Housing Authority.
AKA Fairfield Housing Authority? Oh,
Westport,
yeah, but okay, but that's got the same executive director as,
correct.
yeah,
So, and the reason it's strictly financing capacity.
okay,
I think because Fairfield Housing Authority and the Fairfield Development Housing Corporation has their resources tied up in 980 High Street.
got it, okay. All right.
Carol went to the Westport Housing Authority and the Sasco Development Corporation and said, would you finance this acquisition? And
Yeah. All right, I understand.
But that's creating a lot of confusion
Right.
with the neighbors.
But
Absolutely.
That's allowed to kind of merge the two entities or have a relationship between the two entities?
What was that, Nancy?
You can have that kind of relationship between two separate entities?
Between if you look at the Fairfield Housing Corporation and the Fairfield Housing Authority,
Right.
they're both 501c3s. One is Fairfield Housing Corporation is a 501c3. You can go online and get a 990 form for them. Their mission is the same as the Fairfield Housing Authority for the most part. It's really a development arm
Yeah, it's a
of the
development
Fairfield
arm.
Housing Authority, which is a body politic of the state of Connecticut.
It's
Okay.
a non-
Housing authorities are
development arm.
established under state statute, and then they can establish a development corporation to actually purchase, acquire, develop, manage properties, and that's what they've done. And so the Westport
And
Housing
access
Authority has done
separate
the same
funding.
thing.
Yeah.
What's that?
And access different funding that the
Different. Well,
authority
yeah, they're
couldn't.
a nonprofit, but typically they do that for both financing reasons as well as liability reasons. They want to shield themselves from
Stuff.
any risk.
Right.
And the housing authority can help them bond.
Housing authority can help them bond. Yeah.
So
If you read the state statutes and look at the powers enumerated for housing authorities, they're quite powerful entities, independent entities. They have the ability to do financing like that, issue bonds, debt, have their own police force. It's pretty.
Yeah. It's a public agency unto itself almost.
Yes. Yeah.
And believe me, Carol Martin is, different than most. So she's very progressive.
She comes out of a private, she had worked for Conover, other private sector development companies. So she knows what she's doing from a development.
Yeah.
Very transparent. It could be a lot worse, believe me.
Well, there was another
Oh, I remember.
proposal for that site, and I don't think it was.
Is her. I don't mean about the development.
Yeah, I want to hear what this
For
other.
one, there was a private developer that had submitted a proposal for the site. Thought he had an offer that was accepted. Carol matched it, and the bishop decided to go with the housing authority, let's say, with Carol, and because her mission was to create more affordable units, but the number of units that the private developer was proposing was not going to make the neighborhood any happier, really, because I made this point to the first selectwoman. If we want to actually reduce the size and scale and density of the housing, what we can do is reduce the purchase price of the land.
Yeah.
So if the church was really altruistic and wanted to help serve the greater mission of building affordable housing, they could take $3 million instead of $4.5 million, and Carol wouldn't have to build many units.
Listen to that
because
conversation with the bishop.
Well, we'll see. Or the way it's split, the Episcopal diocese, they have a decision-making authority. They decide who ends up purchasing the land. They don't have to consult with anyone else. But the proceeds from the sale are split between the diocese, Southport Trinity, and the descendants of the original benefactors.
Wow.
So again, Southport Trinity, at reaping 1/3 of the net proceeds of the sale, will benefit financially. And, again, if they wanted to be altruistic or help reduce the size and scope and scale of the development, if they were concerned, maybe they would put that money into the pot and Carroll wouldn't have to build as many units. So,
Or
it's
the
really
town could subsidize it and help.
land cost and construction cost is what drives this stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I did.
The town could do that too.
One thing I remember from at least looking at the existing conditions on that site was it was pretty much sloping downhill, and it was a long, narrow site. And Carroll has generally picked very good architects, and if they are aware of neighborhood concerns about not wanting to see it or have it right in their face, I'm sure they can push it down the hill somewhat.
Yeah, I don't think any of that will help assuage the neighbors at this
Yeah,
point.
it's traffic and schools and all that. Right.
I think, and if I were in their shoes, I'd feel the same ways because you don't have a lot of information right now, so you immediately assume the worst. So I get it. But we'll have to see how this plays out. I think the neighborhood are trying to mount a last ditch effort to basically acquire the property or get the bishop's property. We'll see.
Okay. To be continued.
Yes.
Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This WebEx is working out well. I think we're all getting better at it and discovering
I think the only problem was I think it might have Herb wasn't able to dial into the public line of yours because of the connection. So I think that was the only issue.
Oh, okay. So there's always Zoom.
Yep. Mark, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but assuming we all get our vaccinations in the next month.
Scheduled 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Yay!
Hey, Carrie.
Yeah.
Are you able to have meetings at town hall? Or
Oh, that won't be for a while.
I'm not coming.
no?
I don't know.
Not yet. We're waiting for further. I mean, I think we'll probably be doing this virtually for a few more months yet.
I think so.
But I think to Carrie's point, we are getting better.
We are.
Practice makes perfect.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Have a good
Bye
night.
bye.
Good
Good night.
We're adjourned at
Talk to
8:34.
Chris.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Come on, there we go.